In 2001, John Wright, a veteran railway worker, clocked in for what seemed to be another predictable shift at a train depot in Ohio. With nearly 2 decades of experience, John had spent years monitoring freight movement, inspecting tracks, and making sure operations ran smoothly. Rail work could be monotonous, long hours, repetitive routines, and constant oversight of heavy machinery. But despite the seemingly uneventful nature of his work, John took his job seriously. He knew that a single miscalculation in the railway industry could lead to disaster. That mindset would soon prove to be life-saving. Around noon, workers had been shuffling freight trains through the yard as part of routine transfers. Some carried harmless cargo, lumber, grain, steel beams, but others transported hazardous chemicals that needed extreme caution. Amid the usual shuffling, a grave error was made. One of the trains, a 47-car freight loaded with highly flammable materials, was left without its brakes properly engaged. It started to roll forward, unnoticed at first. The downward slope of the track allowed the massive train to pick up speed, and by the time rail yard workers realized what had happened, it was too late to stop it. John was reviewing shipment logs in the office when a distressed call came through the radio. "We've got a runaway train." The words hit like a hammer. Runaway trains were extremely rare, but when they happened, they were potential catastrophes. The uncontrolled momentum of a train moving at full speed could cause derailments, explosions, and mass casualties, especially with hazardous cargo on board. John immediately pulled up the rail map. The train was on a direct path toward a densely populated area, with several towns along the way. If it reached those towns without intervention, the consequences could be catastrophic. Dispatch was already scrambling, alerting local authorities, attempting to reroute other trains, and figuring out how to mitigate the potential disaster. But John didn't wait for a committee decision. He knew there was only one way to stop it. Thinking fast, John grabbed a nearby locomotive, one that was powerful enough to catch up to the speeding freight. He jumped into the engine cab, radioed his plan to dispatch, and, without hesitation, began pursuing the runaway train on a parallel track. It was a risky move. If he miscalculated, he could derail his own train. John pushed the throttle, accelerating his locomotive to match the runaway train's speed. The freight was already moving at over 40 miles per hour and gaining momentum. After several tense minutes, John finally reached the runaway train, pulling ahead by a few hundred feet. Now came the hardest part. He had to latch onto the runaway train without derailing himself. John adjusted his speed precisely, matching the runaway train's velocity to avoid a violent collision. He felt his heart pounding in his chest. One mistake, one single miscalculation, and everything could spiral into chaos. Slowly, steadily, John maneuvered his locomotive into position. Closer, closer, then clink. His locomotive latched onto the runaway freight, but it wasn't over yet. John immediately applied his train's brakes, trying to slow down both his own locomotive and the freight behind him. The sheer force of the runaway train pushed against him. The weight and speed made it incredibly difficult to slow down, but John was prepared. Using his years of experience, he carefully adjusted braking pressure over the next several minutes, working to gradually bring the train to a halt. The train screeched, metal groaned, sparks flew. And then, silence. After nearly 40 minutes, John successfully stopped the runaway train, just miles away from a major city. When authorities arrived, the scope of what had just happened finally sank in. John had single-handedly averted disaster, stopping a train carrying hazardous chemicals before it could cause irreparable devastation. Word spread quickly. His fellow railway workers hailed him as a hero. The city's officials praised his quick thinking and fearless execution. The media caught wind of the story, turning John into a local legend. But when asked about his actions, John shrugged it off with quiet modesty. "I was just doing my job." And yet, his actions had saved countless lives that day. John's story is a testament to how moments of routine can turn into critical decisions and how ordinary people can step up in extraordinary circumstances. While the world may not always celebrate quiet heroes like John, their actions ripple through time, changing lives in ways no one ever expects. Subscribe for more.